Talk of the track is 2-year-old Newcastle colt Krasnopolski, trained by Max Lees and son Chris. Krasnopolski has had only one start last month at Gosford, where he blitzed the field.
He won by 4.5 lengths and it was only marginally outside the class record.
It's back to Gosford tomorrow for the $100,000 Carlton Slipper, the first of 3 main lead-up races for the Golden Slipper in April.
His work's been great and he meets the others well at the weights, so he should run a real good race.
Also starting tomorrow are 2 other top fancies for the Golden Slipper, Gold Bros and Jet Ball. The 2 last met at Randwick in January. Gold Bros won there and wants to repeat the performance.
But Jet Ball was pretty fat that day. He'd be much fitter for the run and he travelled wide, and I thought myself that Jet Ball would be able to turn the tables on Gold Bros tomorrow. But the Max Lees colt, Krasnopolski, this is his big test tomorrow.
At Gosford, Krasnopolski will be under the whip of Shane Dye.
Shane hasn't got a Golden Slipper mount as yet and he's a pretty good judge. He's won the last 4 Golden Slippers, so he's quite happy to ride him.
The only hiccup in Krasnopolski's Golden Slipper preparation is that the Gosford race doesn't have a full field to render it a Golden Slipper qualifying event. Chris says the colt can still make the Golden Slipper by winning 1 of 3 qualifying races in Sydney next month. But as for tomorrow's Carlton Slipper, NBN's Gary Harley likes the Jack Denham-trained horse Jet Ball. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Recent studies show that 3 times as many men than women play sport, and that 60% of teenage girls aren't actively interested after the age of 14. The report, Hunter Media Link, is the result of a year-long project by the University of Newcastle's Division of Leisure Studies. As part of a national program to encourage more girls and women into the various sporting arenas, it focused on 2 main areas. The first was to increase media coverage for females in sport, the second to improve the publicity skills of women's sporting organisations. Project manager Peter Brown says in the past, women's sports have had a hard time getting media coverage.
Where they do get coverage, they're often portrayed in stereotyped ways, or they're marginalised, or women's sport is presented as being trivial, or they're presented as sex objects and so on.
With an emphasis on constantly informing the media of local sporting events and achievements by various clubs, Mr Brown says coverage increased over the past year, which in turn helped membership numbers to swell. It's hoped the trend will continue.
One of the main objectives of the project, that was to give people the skills to help themselves, will be there now in the community.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
BHP hopes to be able to put an end to emissions like this. Last month, Mayfield and Waratah residents were swamped by clouds of foul-smelling smoke. BHP says the incident occurred when hot coke was quenched by water which contained tar. In a report to the Environment Protection Authority, the company says it will spend $700,000 upgrading the tar plant.
It'll be spent to rationalise the tanks in the area, rationalise all the piping, upgrade the piping and the systems so that we can say there won't be any more leakages.
Kate Graham from BHP says the money will also be spent on a study of how potential pollution emissions can be averted. Alderman Peter Brett, who also lives in the shadow of BHP, has praised the company's commitment to improving equipment. However, he wants more money to be spent upgrading the plant.
Also, what they are going to do about what we call rotten egg gas, whether or not they're going to do something about that, and whether or not they're going to do something about the black material called kish that comes out of their smelting operations.
Kate Graham says while BHP wants to improve other facilities on the site, its priority is the tar plant. Work will begin on the area immediately. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
The fire moved quickly through the brick house and its contents in Bumble Hill Road, Yarramalong, destroying the building before brigades could arrive. It's thought to have started in a bedroom. The alarm was raised by a passing motorist. The owner, the principal of Wyong High School, was not at home at the time. Fire officers were carrying out checks of electrical connections, but it's almost certain the blaze was deliberately lit. Wyong detectives are now investigating.
With a stiff southerly closing out most city beaches, the Newcastle Branch Championships descended on nobbies. A fair swell tested the boat crews. Swansea Belmont considered favourites for the state championship. Newcastle's latest water baby, 14-year-old Linda Campbell, swimming for Swansea Belmont, is just as much at home in the surf as she is in the pool, already with state and national standing. Linda was a clear leader in the under-16 swim, followed home by clubmate Cherie Smith. Competitors in the beach and surfcraft events are in peak condition, vying for team selection. About 900 nippers are expected to compete in the Junior Branch Championships at Hawks Nest tomorrow. Harry Bartlett says that one of the good things about going up against a few hundred other lefties is that for once he wasn't in the minority.
It looks normal. At last you feel at home.
Played over 4 days at the Harewood Club in Christchurch, Harry averaged mid-70 scores on a billiard table flat course, difficult for chipping and putting. He came out 8 ahead after 4 rounds, the Open and Women's divisions won by Kiwis. Harry is club captain at Newcastle and was welcomed back by members today. But pleased as he is with his trophy, he's noticed one glaring oversight.
The emblem at the top is it's a right-handed golfer, not a left-handed golfer.
What's it like when you get 300 or 400 other left-handed...
Transform Composites started off as a one-man business operating from a caravan. It now employs 90 people and has just been awarded a $3 million contract with State Rail to supply train seats. Over the next 12 months, the company will build and fit together around 1,000 seats for State Rail's XPT and Explorer trains. 12 other local companies will also benefit from the work.
A lot of the parts for the R&R suite are manufactured by Newcastle companies. They are brought here and we assemble them here on the plant. So yes, a lot of other Newcastle companies have benefited from the contract.
The first lot of seats will be trucked out on Thursday. While 10 new jobs are being created with this latest contract, around 80 men and women are hard at work in a shed next door. They're building seats and other fiberglass products for the Tangara trains. The $17 million Tangara project will keep these people in jobs for 8 years. In that time, 25,000 fiberglass seats will be shipped to nearby Ganinan for fitting. While many companies are suffering under the recession, Transform Composites is planning to expand and market its product overseas. The recipe for success is simple.
I think everyone's known what they've had to do. We've got a good bunch of employees and that here, and everyone's put their head down, and that's how we win contracts.
This is where future radiation therapists will train. It's only a small room, but it houses valuable equipment which will help students to save lives. Most of the equipment was donated by the Hunter Valley Cancer Appeal Committee. It's valued at around $75,000. The radiation treatment unit was donated by Royal North Shore Hospital. Today the room was officially opened and the community thanked for its support. The radiation therapy course was started at Newcastle University 3 years ago to supply radiation therapists for the nearby Mater Hospital. But because of budget constraints, the Mater has employed just one of 10 graduates.
We're disappointed. I know the Mater's disappointed, the staff at the Radiation Oncology Department, and obviously the students who are from the area, a number of them from the area, are disappointed they were unable to get employment in the Hunter Valley.
Much of the money supplied by the Cancer Appeal Committee to buy equipment was raised by the last NBN Telethon. The 1993 Telethon will be held in 3 weeks' time. Tony Buxton has no doubt it too will benefit the community.
The Hunter Valley Cancer Appeal Committee were responsible with the delegation of large sums of money from the telethon, the previous 2 telethons I believe, and that money has been channelled through to us, and that is obviously the telethon funds working for the community of Newcastle.
I was walking along the edge of Newcastle Harbour, and for some reason or other it just occurred to me that I wondered whether it was possible for midget submarines to actually enter the harbour.
In the imagination of Paul Walsh, this simple thought flowered into a novel that spans 4 decades and the Pacific Ocean. The burning bush uses as its focal point the June night when World War II reached the shores of Newcastle, with a submarine shelling the city. From that night of terror, Paul weaves a tale of espionage that links the events of the war with the dismissal of Gough Whitlam in 1975. And amidst all the words, there are settings that would strike Newcastle readers as being familiar.
The book is indeed based on fact, and the research is detailed to the extent that even the restaurants of the city of the time have been recreated.
The Burning Bush has already sold 2,000 copies in Newcastle alone.
The book has gone to number 2 on the bestseller lists in Newcastle, and I think that's a testament to the fact that people here in Newcastle will support their own creativity.
The novel is about to receive a national publicity push, and there's even interest being shown by film and television production companies.
I believe that the transference of the book to film is now inevitable.
And all this from a stroll along the foreshore. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Debbie Ray Pritchard was 25 years old when she disappeared in 1982. She was last seen alive outside the Palais nightclub in Hunter Street, Newcastle. Last May, 10 years after she was last sighted, her skeleton was found in an earth bank under the Cox Lane Bridge at Fullerton Cove. Today, her parents were at Newcastle's Coroner's Court for the start of the inquiry into her death. Since the discovery of her body, Newcastle's Homicide Squad has re-interviewed witnesses in the case. Detective Anthony Harrington told the inquest that it was the view of investigating police that the night she went missing, Debbie Pritchard was picked up in Hunter Street by taxi driver Gary Raymond Renshaw. In 1982, Renshaw told police he believed he was hailed by Pritchard and a male person. He was directed to take them to the house occupied by Pritchard's boyfriend in Lonas Avenue, Whitebridge. Detective Harrington told the court that Gary Renshaw was re-interviewed following the discovery of Debbie Pritchard's body. The coronial inquest will continue next week.
The Greens' 4 principles. My vote, I don't like those other guys. Liberal Labor attention grabbing isn't about opportunistic. In Newcastle, we have our fair share of that. I live in Islip. Think about that. That gives you a bit of a picture of the Greens.
A defeat in last night's game against Canberra may not be the only thing the Knights stand to lose. A row that's brewing over advertising rights at the Marathon Stadium may see them never host a Challenge Cup game at the stadium again. For last night's game, New South Wales Rugby League wanted advertising signs promoting tuis placed around the fence line.
The inference was similar to that happened at Parramatta Stadium last Friday night, that our existing fence signs would have to be covered with black plastic so that the A-frames that the league had sold the rights to could be placed in front of them.
Mr Armstrong says the problem is the Knights Club has a contract with Sydney company Cablo Holdings giving it the rights to advertising at Marathon Stadium. This deal, Mr Armstrong says, represents an annual return of more than $150,000 for the club. Cablo believes the TUI signs would have prevented its clients from receiving exposure during the telecast doubleheader and won an injunction late yesterday stopping the erection of the TUI signs. League headquarters says this court decision means future Challenge Cup games won't feature at the stadium.
If we're not to get that game up here in the future, well, that's a disappointment for us because it disappoints our supporters who can't attend.
New South Wales Rugby League says the ban cost it $30,000 in lost revenue and may now challenge the Newcastle Knights to foot the bill, a move the Knights say they'd fight.
We're not in a position just to fork over $30,000 to the New South Wales Rugby League.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Yeah.
While RAAF personnel trained for war this morning, Prime Minister Paul Keating was in the midst of an election battle, landing at the Williamtown base for a day of campaigning in the Hunter. Rushing from the air to the airwaves, Mr Keating talked on Radio 2HD about the government's record in the region.
Look, we put Newcastle back on its feet 10 years ago. 10 years ago, BHP was going to shut down. This place would have been, in industrial terms, a ghost town.
Next stop, the shopping bustle of Charlestown Square, where the PM's presence divided volatile opinions. With unemployment the key election issue, New Vale miners sought Mr Keating's support to save their jobs, but believed they were virtually ignored.
Well, I would have thought he would have given us a little bit more time because of the unemployment issue.
Instead, attention was focused on Norm Duffy, who helped bolster the spirits of victims trapped in the rubble of the old Newcastle Workers' Club during the 1989 earthquake. The Prime Minister presented Mr Duffy with a letter of recognition for his bravery.
I'm very pleased, tickle pink, as the saying goes. Very happy.
While Mr Keating's morning was spent in what's considered to be the Labor heartland, this afternoon saw him venture into the electoral unknown, the seat of Paterson. This is expected to be the most marginal seat in the country in the coming election, with a swing of less than 1% tipping the scales in either direction. In Maitland, Mr Keating met 120 apprentices learning skills that they hope will prevent them from becoming part of the region's youth unemployment rate of 34%. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Women all over the world are protesting this week in support women who are victims of violence. The trigger to these protests has and women, arson, bombing and butyric acid.
It's just as a part of the racial cleansing.
Yeah, so it's not really
being denied land rights, being subject to war and repression, and seeing their inadequate funding continually threatened, being unemployed, underemployed, or employed at 80% of the average male wage.
Leading the pack will be Gary Brazier, Brooke Tatnell and brothers Colin and Robert Farr. Brazier is currently on a roll after winning the Warrnambool Classic, one of the toughest events in the country a fortnight ago. He also won the Sprint Car Classic at the Motordrome in late December. Brooke Tatnell will be firmly in Brazier's sights after his 5th in the national titles, they being the only 2 New South Wales drivers in the top 5 placings. While all eyes will be on these two, the Farr brothers, Colin and Robert, have proved in the past to be highly competitive and capable of causing an upset or two.
Each year in New South Wales, 3 or 4 toddlers die at home in the family bath. Last night, ambulance officer Graham Keith took a 000 emergency call. A Cessnock mother found her baby face down and unconscious. She'd left her for just a few minutes. It was Graham Keith's advice that helped revive the baby till an ambulance could get there 5 minutes later.
It's just part of our job that we do, and we try to do the best we can for what we've got.
Paramedics say some basic steps can give parents a head start. The baby should be checked for a pulse and breathing. In most drowning cases, the heart will keep beating for 5 to 6 minutes. If there's no breath, he or she should be placed on the side, water drained out of the mouth, then apply mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Place your mouth, widely opened mouth, over their nose and mouth because of their small facial features, and merely breathe with the puff of your cheeks, and you'll be amazed just how easily the child's chest will rise.
The Cessnock toddler is alive due to some cool and calm advice. Only about 10% of parents know how to resuscitate a child. Paramedics have urged everyone to join a reputable Safety First program. A few simple tips could save a life. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's the 67th annual Cessnock show, and there's just as much excitement in the air as there was for the first one. There's something for everyone, horse and cattle events, some of the cattle setting a mean pace, and of course Sideshow Alley, where one little man found plenty to keep him busy. Then on to the rides for the young and the young at heart. And in a novel edition, the town's community radio is running some test transmissions. The show continues tomorrow. A grand finale fireworks display is planned for around 9:30 p.m. to close the show. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
According to Michael and Gary Marshall, their younger brother Jason led a sad and lonely life. The 20-year-old was unemployed and well known to police. Jason was found unconscious in Michael Street, Jesmond, around 3 o'clock on Saturday morning. He was rushed to John Hunter Hospital but died soon after from severe head and internal injuries. Today, police were talking to neighbours, hoping for any leads that might help investigations.
We'd like to know anyone that's seen him, and anyone that might have any idea of where he went during that night.
It's believed Jason, of average height, thin build with blonde hair, was drinking at the Shortland RSL club late Friday night. Michael says he was the last person his brother spoke to before his death and says he finds it hard to believe someone drove away, leaving Jason to die.
I hope the driver's watching, and I hope he's got the guts and be man enough, if it's a man, to own up to it.
Anyone with information can contact Newcastle Police. Melinda Smith, NBN News. Located near the small township of Scone, Glenbourne Dam is a popular recreational retreat for water lovers. For the past 5 years, a group of fishermen from the Tamworth Workers Fishing Club have enjoyed an annual weekend away. But tragedy struck around 8 o'clock yesterday morning off the western foreshore. When 50-year-old Boyce Quickendo attempted to retrieve his hat, he accidentally fell overboard and disappeared. Police and SES crews were called in. A search by the local Aero Club failed to find any signs of the fisherman. Rescue operations resumed first light this morning.
Today we were here on the water at 6 this morning. We've just made patrols around the foreshore, hoping to see if we can catch him.
Searchers say they believe the body could be tangled amongst submerged trees.
They fall and get trapped into the trees and just become snagged, and until they float free of that, you've really got no way of knowing how long they're going to be there.
The tragedy follows another drowning accident in the dam just over a year ago. The fisherman's body was never recovered. Police say in both cases the anglers were not wearing life jackets.
With the banks of the Williams River resembling a busy day at Bondi, Auski 93 entered its do-or-die rounds. The breeze and chop held off, giving competitors even footing in the contest to come. The men's slalom sorted out an international field of skiers, long on the reach, but as the tow lines shortened for each run, so did the odds between the Gold Coast's Bruce Neville and his cousin Michael. Michael's performance forced a ski off. Bruce's hopes rested on making one final buoy. The SeaWorld skiers came on for a tension breaker, bringing poise, precision and that famous pyramid to the river. Back to the competition, and this time it was two more Nevilles doing battle, Karen and Tony in the women's ski jump. But defending champion Emma Shears from Victoria wasn't going to be left out, landing the title yet again with a jump of 39.5 metres. Soon after, a grey cloud was to blow over Bruce Neville's defence of the Ski Jump Cup. The United States' Scott Ellis soared 57.2 metres. Neville had the right of reply, the best of 3 jumps, but miscalculations conspired against him.
The piece has impressed the head of the show's arts section.
Standard is very high. It has exceeded last year's standard by quite a deal.
Artists from the Hunter region won the major awards. David Middlebrook is more than $2,000 richer with his Lake Fire taking out the traditional or non-traditional prize. M.H. McGuinness won the print section with Charcoal Night, while the sculpture section was taken out by Peter Tilley's Shrine No. 2. An additional section for work that best expressed a Newcastle region theme was won by Brian Roberts, Movement Afloat, Newcastle Harbour. This section demanded a unique requirement.
Something that evokes what Newcastle is, in that it's a scene of nobbies, but it also is painted with such vibrant colours, and it does have that spirit of Newcastle.
Selecting the best proved a daunting task for the judge, Ray Richards of Newcastle.
Answered all the criteria and took painting a little bit further than perhaps a lot of the other work, and just beautiful use of his mastery of his technique. Highly professional and very beautiful.
Overnight rain has failed to dampen final preparations for the show.
Last year we had a terrible lot of rain. Well, this year the showground is a picture, but the rain has just sort of topped it off, made the grass nice and green, the dust is laid, and we're all set for a great show.
Valley View is the other one. I think Valley View was.
These are the first pictures of the new Explorer trains. The machines Bruce Baird hopes will encourage a resurgence in rail travel. The carriages feature a new buffet service, aircraft-style reclining seats and air-riding suspension. Each train will have a sleeper carriage specially designed to cope with high speeds.
It's the first sleeper car built in New South Wales for 30 years, so that we're very pleased to see it on the track again. It's a new level of comfort, we've got new bogies, and I'm sure that people are going to enjoy the night's rest.
The first trains will be ready for trials in May, then services to Tamworth, Armidale and Moree will be introduced from late July.
This new train allows us to provide the service that we wanted to do, because the ability to divide means that we can run a smaller number of cars and they can go up to Armidale and out to Moree, and it's a much more economic, efficient way of doing it.
And the public will have a say about train timetables.
Through the local members, we plan to talk to various community groups and get their comment and input in terms of the type of timetable that they would like to see, so that when we finally come up with it, I'm sure that not everybody's going to be pleased, but generally it'll be in line with what the community expects.
When Angel One crashed near the Barrington Tops 2 weeks ago, the rescue service had to make some quick decisions. Another chopper was leased from Sydney, but with limited capabilities. The Squirrel replacement is unable to do night rescues, has no hoist and can't carry as many patients. Rescue Chief Alan McMahon says they've been lucky so far, but it's now a case of replacing the replacement.
This has been able to do the job. Yes, noted, it has got some limitations. Fortunately, it's been able to service our needs. And what we're looking for is those looking down the end of the line when there will be a case, or possibly something like that, where the aircraft might not be able to respond. That's a great concern.
The service is still waiting on a decision by underwriters regarding the fate of Angel One, insured for $2.4 million. If replaced, it could be another 6 months before full rescue operations are back to normal.
By the time that actual decision is made, you then got to get the aircraft over here. It's then got to be organised to the requirements that we need it for. It's got to be painted, it's got to be registered in the CAA, etc, etc. It does take a long time.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Ground staff spent the day completing the autumn touches to the Broadmeadow track. Light rain over the past couple of weeks has the course in excellent condition. The grass is thick and the track is fast. Hopefully the skies will stay clear for the feature event, the Coca-Cola Classic. Last year drizzle made for an ordinary day. Favourite Burst withdrew after bolting and throwing her mount, leaving the way clear for Zodiac Miss to storm home. Mick Dipman steered the horse across the line and he'll be back tomorrow on favourite Social Path. The Coca-Cola Classic is seen as a warm-up for the Golden Slipper and Social Path is already odds-on favourite. However, the 2-year-old will have some tough competition.
These fields for tomorrow and on Wednesday have stood up very well at Broadmeadow, and I know the officials are very pleased because Sunday racing is a headache.
Gary Harley's best bets for tomorrow in race 6, the Coca-Cola Classic. He likes number 3 Social Path and locally trained Centrefold Spread and Moss Rocket.